Welcome to my channel, Worth Old Coins. Today is best top 6 coins. Please don't skip this video, so let's get it started. Top 1. The 1979 United States 5-cent coin, universally known as the Jefferson nickel, might appear as just a small, everyday coin of base metal, yet in truth, it carries with it decades of American history, symbolism, and quiet craftsmanship that's easy to overlook in daily life. Struck by the United States Mint at its facilities in Philadelphia, No Mint Mark, Denver D. Mint Mark, and San Francisco S. Mint Mark, mostly for proof coins. The 1979 nickel belongs to the classic series that began in 1938, honoring Thomas Jefferson, the nation's third president, principal author of the Declaration of Independence, and a towering figure in the early republic. The obverse of the coin, designed by sculptor Felix Schlag, features a left-facing portrait of Jefferson, hair pulled back and tied in the 18th century style, with the inscription, "In God We Trust," to the left, liberty, and the date 1979 to the right, separated by a small star depending on where it was minted. The letter D or S appears next to the date, while Philadelphia nickels of that time carried no mint mark. The reverse shows Jefferson's beloved home Monticello, an elegant, neoclassical mansion he designed himself and which stands today as a testament to his intellectual and architectural legacy. Above Monticello arches the legend E pluribus unum, Latin for out of many one, while below appears the building's name, Monticello, the denomination 5 cents, and finally the country name, United States of America. Though simple at first glance, this reverse design has a quiet dignity that echoes Jefferson's own ideals of balance, proportion, and enlightenment. Philosophicum Postplia, the 1979 nickel is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core, a metallic sandwich that gives it durability and its signature silver gray color, quite unlike the copper pennies or silver-tinted dimes. Weighing 5.00 grams and measuring 21.2 millimeters in diameter, it has a plain, smooth edge rather than reeded, making it instantly recognizable by touch alone, despite being only a 5-cent coin. The nickel's weight and substantial feel give it a presence in the hand that many lighter modern coins lack. The year 1979 is notable in American coinage as the first year the U.S. Mint issued the Susan B. Anthony dollar, yet the nickel remained unchanged, its design unbroken for decades. A quiet symbol of stability in the American pocket, mintages were high. Hundreds of millions were struck for circulation, making the 1979 nickel common in everyday use and easily found in pocket change even today. 4 collectors circulated 1979 nickels. Hold little premium unless in exceptional condition, but sharp mint state MS coins graded MS 66 or above, or proof coins struck at San Francisco with the S Mint mark, are prized for their brilliant surfaces and crisp details, especially the architectural lines of Monticello and Jefferson's hair and coat. Collectors also enjoy searching for small variations and die states that sometimes appear even in modern issues. Historically, the 1979 Jefferson nickel links the everyday acts of buying coffee or paying for a newspaper to the broader sweep of American history, from Jefferson's Enlightenment ideals and architectural genius to the coin's quiet endurance through economic ups and downs. It's a reminder that even in base metal, design and symbolism can elevate a simple object into a cute chi and obscant into a tiny historical artifact. Top 2. The 1937 United States 5-cent coin, widely known as the Buffalo nickel or Indian head nickel, is one of America's most iconic and artistically admired coins. It's a small piece of base metal that holds within it the rugged spirit of the American West and the nation's romantic fascination with its own frontier history. Designed by the sculptor James Earl Fraser and first issued in 1913, the Buffalo nickel's design broke sharply from earlier, more classical coinage by boldly celebrating the uniquely American themes of native heritage and the disappearing Western frontier. On the obverse, the coin features the striking right-facing portrait of a Native American man, his hair in braids wearing two feathers. This portrait was not of a single person, but a composite based on several real Native American chiefs whom Fraser sketched from life, including Iron Tail, Sioux Two Moons, Cheyenne, and possibly John Big Tree Seneca. Above the portrait arcs the word Liberty, while the date, 1937, appears in relief on the shoulder. The reverse shows an equally powerful image, a massive American bison, popularly called a buffalo, standing solidly on a mound of earth above it. Reads United States of America and the motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, and below it the denomination 5 cents. Fraser's design aimed to capture both the strength and quiet dignity of the animal that once roamed the Great Plains in vast numbers, a living symbol of the American frontier spirit. The model for the bison was likely Black Diamond, a famous buffalo kept at the Bronx Zoo in New York City, though Fraser himself sometimes offered slightly different stories. The design, bold and rustic, carries an almost sculptural depth, which made it beautiful in hand, but also prone to rapid wear in circulation, especially on the date and the mound under the bison. The 1937 issue was struck at 3 Mints, Philadelphia, no mint mark, Denver D. Mint mark, and San Francisco S mint mark. Coins from all 3 mints share the same basic design, though the San Francisco and Denver coins were generally produced in smaller slim smalls. Numbers: the coin weighs 5.00 grams, is made of 75% copper and 25% nickel, and measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, with a plain edge, the same specifications used for American nickels from 1866 onward. Historically, 1937 is notable because it was the second to last year of Buffalo nickel production. In 1938, the design was replaced by the new Jefferson nickel, which was easier to produce with clear details that wore more slowly. The final Buffalo nickels, struck in 1938, came only from the Denver Mint in very limited numbers, known as the famous 1938D, making 1937 one of the last widely circulated years for collectors. The 1937 Buffalo nickel is both accessible and fascinating. While common in lower circulated grades, examples in high mint state with sharp detail on the Native American's braid and the buffalo's horn command significant premiums. Proof coins were also struck in Philadelphia from 1936 to 1937 in small numbers, about 5,769 proofs in 1937, highly prized for their mirror-like fields and frosted reliefs. There's also a legendary variety from this year, the 1937 D3-legged Buffalo nickel, created when a mint worker over-polished the die, accidentally removing the buffalo's front right leg. This accidental rarity became one of the most famous and sought-after American coin errors. Beyond rarity and metal, the 1937 Buffalo nickel carries cultural weight. It represents a nostalgic view of America's frontier past, paying tribute, however romantically, to both Native American heritage and the iconic bison that once dominated the plains. It was part of the early 20th century movement to create coins that were distinctly American in theme and artistry, breaking away from the classical European-influenced designs that had dominated earlier U.S. coinage. Top 3. The 1971D United States 5-cent coin, better known as the 1971D Jefferson nickel, may seem like a small, everyday object, but in reality, it carries with it decades of American history, artistry, and silent witness to the daily life of millions. Minted at the Denver Mint in Colorado, which is marked by the small D mint marked to the right of the date on the obverse. The coin is part of the long-running Jefferson nickel series, introduced in 1938. The obverse features the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, America's third president and principal author of the Declaration of Independence, sculpted by Felix Schlag, who won a design competition in the late 1930s. Jefferson's portrait, with his hair pulled back into an 18th century Q carries a calm dignity and neoclassical simplicity. The words, "In God We Trust," curve along the left edge, while Liberty and the date 1971 appear on the right, separated by a 5-pointed star and the small D mint mark that quietly tells of its Denver origin. Flipping the coin over the reverse reveals Jefferson's famous Virginia home Monticello, whose neoclassical design he personally sketched, modified, and rebuilt throughout his life. Monticello appears front-facing and slightly raised with subtle details of its iconic dome and columns. Above the building arches, the national motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, while below we see Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. Schlag's design was praised for its balance and quiet grace, turning a simple 5-cent coin into a miniature monument honoring both Jefferson's architectural vision and the nation's founding ideals. The 1971D nickel was made of the standard post-World War II alloy, 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core, giving it the familiar silvery gray color and durability. It weighs 5.00 grams, measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and has a smooth plane edge, making it instantly recognizable by feel alone. While earlier wartime nickels, 1942 to 1945, contained silver to save nickel for military use, by 1971 the mint had long returned to this durable copper-nickel composition, which continues to this day. The year 1971 marked an interesting moment in American history. The Vietnam War was ongoing. NASA had just ended the Apollo 14 mission, and cultural shifts were reshaping society. Yet, despite all the change, the Jefferson nickel remained a quiet, daily constant, exchanged at diners, saved in change jars, or handed over at gas stations. The Denver Mint struck over 315 million of these coins, making the 1971D common in circulation. Though high-grade uncirculated examples are still cherished by collectors, for collectors, the 1971D is abundant in circulated grades. But the challenge and value come in finding coins in high mint state MS grades, especially those showing sharp details on Jefferson's hair, Monticello steps, and fields free of heavy marks. Some collectors also look for examples with full steps, 5 or 6 clear unbroken steps on Monticello, which are much scarcer and command a premium. Although it isn't a rare date, coin's clean design and historical ties make it a classic. Part of Jefferson nickel albums beyond the metal and numbers, the 1971D. Jefferson nickel represents more than small change. It's a living piece of American history that links the founding ideals of Thomas Jefferson, liberty, reason, and architecture to the everyday acts of buying groceries, making change, or saving in a jar. It serves as a reminder that even the humblest coin can quietly carry the story of a nation. Top 4. The 1983D United States 5-cent coin, officially called the Jefferson nickel, may look like an ordinary piece of pocket change today, yet it carries within its copper-nickel shell a quiet link to American history, artistry, and the everyday life of the early 1980s. Struck at the Denver Mint, indicated by the small D mint mark to the right of the date on the obverse, this nickel belongs to the long-running Jefferson series, first introduced in 1938. After a public design competition that replaced the legendary Buffalo nickel. The obverse of the 1983D nickel features the left-facing bust of Thomas Jefferson III, President of the United States and author of the Declaration of Independence, designed by German-American sculptor Felix Schlag. Jefferson's portrait is rendered in a neoclassical style, his hair tied in a colonial queue, with the words "In God We Trust" to the left and "Liberty" and the date 1983 to the right, separated by a small 5-pointed star and the D mint mark discreetly placed just next to the date. Turning the coin over the reverse presents Jefferson's beloved home, Monticello, an elegant neoclassical estate he designed himself and spent decades refining. Above Monticello arches the national motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, while below are the inscriptions Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. Though the design may seem simple, its clean lines and balanced composition reflect Jefferson's Enlightenment ideals of symmetry and rational design. Schlag's depiction of Monticello became iconic, making the building one of the most instantly recognizable pieces of American architecture, known even to those who never visited it. Technically, the 1983D Jefferson nickel is composed of an alloy of 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core, giving the coin its signature pale silver gray color and durability. It weighs 5.0 grams, has a diameter of 21.2 millimeters, and a smooth plain edge, while earlier nickels from World War II 194-21945 contained silver. By 1983, the nickel had long returned to its standard copper-nickel composition. Historically, 1983 came at a time of economic recovery following a deep recession in the early 1980s, with cultural shifts shaping American society and technology starting to reshape daily life. Yet amid these broader changes, the Jefferson nickel remained a quiet constant, passed from hand to hand in millions of everyday transactions, often unnoticed, yet always there. For collectors, the 1983D nickel is common in circulated grades, as the Denver Mint produced over 636 million that year. However, the real interest lies in high-grade examples. Mint State MS coins, especially those graded MS65 and above, with crisp detail on Jefferson's hair and Monticello's steps. Collectors especially seek examples with full steps on Monticello, meaning 5 or 6 clearly separated steps visible under magnification, a sign of an exceptionally sharp strike, which is relatively scarce because many 1983D nickels were softly struck and show weak detail beyond numbers and grades. The 1983D Jefferson nickel quietly connects modern pocket change to the nation's founding ideals, Jefferson's belief in reason architecture and Republican government. The American motto E pluribus unbanned the endurance of a simple, functional design through decades of cultural transformation. Even as inflation changed the buying power of a nickel, its familiar feel and look provided a comforting sense of continuity. Top 5. The 1976D United States 5-cent coin, formerly known as the 1976D Jefferson nickel, may look like an everyday worn piece of pocket change today, yet it quietly connects modern hands to a deeply symbolic year in American history and to a design rooted in the nation's founding ideals. Struck at the Denver Mint in Colorado, identified by the small D Mint mark to the right of the date, this nickel continued the long-running Jefferson series that began in 1938. The obverse carries the familiar left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson, America's third president and the principal author of the Declaration of Independence, sculpted by artist Felix Schlag after a public design contest in the late 1930s. Jefferson's calm gaze, neoclassical profile, and tied-back hair reflect the quiet dignity of Enlightenment thinking. Around him curved the words, "In God we trust," on the left, and "Liberty," and the date 1976 on the right, separated by a small 5-pointed star and the Denver D Mint mark. Turning the coin over reveals Monticello Jefferson's elegant Virginia home that he designed and built himself, symbolizing his architectural talent and enlightenment. Ideals of balance and symmetry. Above Monticello arches the Latin motto E pluribus unum, out of many one, band below the inscriptions Monticello, 5 cents, and United States of America. While the design is unchanged from previous years, the date 1976 makes this nickel special in the timeline of American history because it marks the nation's bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Unlike quarters, halves, and dollars that year, the nickel did not get a special bicentennial reverse. It kept Schlag's classic Monticello design quietly linking modern America to the ideals Jefferson wrote into the Declaration 2 centuries earlier. Compositionally, the 1976D Jefferson nickel is struck from the standard copper-nickel alloy used since 1946, 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core, giving it a silvery gray hue that resists corrosion and wear. Weighs 5.00 grams, measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and has a plain, smooth edge, while earlier wartime nickels from 1942 to 1945 contained silver to conserve nickel for military use by 1976. The mint had long returned to this durable peacetime composition in 1976 and the Denver Mint produced over 441 million of these nickels for everyday commerce. This makes the 1976D. It's common in circulation, but collectors look for coins in high mint state. MS grades with clean fields and sharp details, especially the fine lines in Jefferson's hair and the full steps detail on Monticello, showing 5 or 6 distinct steps on the building's front porch. Nickels with full steps are scarcer as the design's lower relief often struck softly at the mint. Historically, the bicentennial year was filled with patriotic celebrations, parades, and commemorative coins. Americans reflected on 200 years of independence while facing new challenges in the modern age. The Jefferson nickel, with its unchanged classic design, offered a quiet sense of continuity, still bearing the face of the man whose words had sparked the nation's founding beyond its metal and numbers. The 1976D Jefferson nickel is more than piece 5 cents. It is a small, circulating tribute to the ideals of liberty, reason, and architecture that Thomas Jefferson embodied. Whether worn smooth by decades of use, kept shiny in a collector's folder, or found unexpectedly in pocket change today, this coin connects everyday life to America's founding story, silently passing through millions of hands over nearly half a century. Top 6. The 1973 United States 5-cent coin, formerly known as the 1973 Jefferson nickel, might seem like just another worn piece of everyday change today, yet in truth, it carries with it the quiet endurance of American history, design, and national identity, struck by the United States Mint in 2 main facilities: Philadelphia with no mint mark that year, and Denver with a D mint mark. The 1973 nickel continues the classic design introduced in 1938, which replaced the beloved Buffalo nickel and marked a shift toward neoclassical simplicity and presidential tributes. The obverse of the coin features the left-facing portrait of Thomas Jefferson III, U.S. President and author of the Declaration of Independence, sculpted by German-American artist Felix Schlag, whose design was selected through a national competition. Jefferson's thoughtful gaze and tied-back hair recall the Enlightenment era he so admired. To the left of his portrait arches the motto, "In God We Trust," while to the right liberty and the date 1973 are separated by a small 5-pointed star with the D mint mark appearing beside the date for Denver coins, while Philadelphia nickels of that year carried no mark. The reverse of the coin depicts Monticello, Jefferson's stately neoclassical home in Virginia that he designed and expanded over decades, turning it into an architectural embodiment of balance, symmetry, and rational beauty. The inscription, E pluribus unum, out of many, one arcs across the top below the building appears its name, Monticello. The denomination 5 cents and United States of America. Though modest in scale, the design remains quietly elegant. The crisp dome columns and steps echo Jefferson's ideals and the classical influences he studied in European architecture. The 1973 Jefferson nickel is struck from the standard copper nickel composition that had been used since after World War II, 75% copper and 25% nickel bonded over a pure copper core, giving it its signature silver gray color and durability. It weighs 5.00 grams, measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and has a smooth, plain edge, unlike the special silver alloy nickels. Minted from 1942 to 1945 during wartime, the 1973. Nickel used no precious metal, keeping its production practical and economical for circulation historically. 1973 was a year marked by social and economic change in the United States. The Vietnam War was winding down. The Watergate scandal was unfolding, and the first oil crisis loomed. Yet despite these upheavals, the Jefferson nickel remained a reassuring constant, a quiet link to the founding ideals. Jefferson represented the Denver Mint produced over 384 million of these nickels, while the Philadelphia Mint struck even more, making them common in circulation, however, for collectors. The search focuses on high-grade mint state MS coins with strong luster and detail, particularly those showing full steps on Monticello, meaning 5 or 6 distinct, unbroken steps on the building's front, which are scarcer due to the mint's striking quality beyond its mintage numbers and composition. The 1973 Jefferson nickel embodies something deeper. It connects everyday commerce, buying coffee, paying bus fare, saving coins in a jar, to the enduring legacy of a founding father. Jefferson, the visionary who drafted the Declaration of Independence, stands quietly on this coin as a reminder of the nation's origins and ideals, even as it passed through millions of everyday hands. Thanks for watching my videos. Please subscribe my channel for more videos.